Welcome to the Education Insights Focus on Behavior podcast. We're here to talk about all things behavior in the world of education. We take the science of behavior and break it down for educators into easily implementable steps, and we're excited to spend some time with you. Get ready to talk through behavior, what works, what doesn't work, and how we can all improve our work in schools so we as educators can be more fulfilled and our students can be more successful.
Hello, welcome back again to Education Insights Focus on Behavior. I'm your host, Dr. Selena Layden, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Dr. Daria Lorio-Barston. Hi, Daria.
Hi, everyone.
And Daniel Irwin. Hi, Daniel.
You almost said Dr. Daniel Irwin. Hi.
And we, of course, are also joined by our producer, Emily Muse. Hi, Emily.
Hello.
So we know that classroom management takes a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of strategy behind it. And so we want to take a little bit of that guesswork out of it. And so today's episode, we are going to talk about some strategies. And specifically, we're going to do a strategy showdown. We have our two experts on our strategies today, Daniel and Daria, and they are going to talk about the good, the bad, the messy of both approaches. And then you, our listeners, can decide what fits your teaching style, your classroom, your students, and why you might use these. So our overarching strategy today is prompting. And we're going to take on two strategies. So in round one of our strategy showdown, each of our contestants are going to describe what their strategy is. And then we will dive into round two, where we talk about the benefits and the potential drawbacks of those strategies. And then round three will be application. So round one, we're going to let Daniel go first. Daniel, tell us what your strategy is, and then we will let Daria have her turn.
I'd be happy to, and thank you for the opportunity. Prompting in general, I think we should start there because we're talking about two specific types of prompts today, and there are many, many others that we might want to explore. But prompting is basically the act of providing an additional cue or stimulus to help a student or help a person engage in a specific response or do the thing we want them to do, or that is going to help them be successful. And so it's something that's kind of added to the environment to help them be successful. So that said, I'm talking today about verbal prompts, which many of you will recognize from a school environment and most of our lives as simply providing a clear spoken instruction or cue that helps people understand what it is they're supposed to be doing or the behavior we're looking for. We use them all the time to help explain what is going on in our world and what we can do about it.
Thank you, Daniel. Daria?
Thank you, Selena and Daniel and Emily, for this lovely opportunity. My initial thought was to demonstrate a gestural prompt, which is a nonverbal prompt to indicate and suggest the target behavior. However, I realized that may be more challenging than my skills allow me to do on a podcast, given that the listeners will be listening to it. So a gestural prompt, I would imagine that most people can immediately conjure a vision in their heads when I say the words teacher look. A teacher look, as all educators know exactly what that is, it's when you cut your eyes, so to speak, at a student to redirect them, to get them back on task. So that could be an example of a gestural prompt. But really, think of any nonverbal behavior, such as nodding, such as pointing, such as motioning in a particular way that you are trying to communicate to a student what the expected behavior that they should be engaging in as a way to kind of prompt them to engage in that said behavior.
Thank you so much. All right, so now Emily's ready with our timer. We're going to let Daria go first. Daria is going to give us the pros or reasons why gestural prompts are the go-to strategy, at least in this case.
All right, so gestural prompts are the bee's knees for some of the following reasons. They are not very intrusive. They are very easy to fade. They really resemble very commonly used prompts in the environment in general. They help support learners who may have limited verbal ability or for someone who is just learning the language. And they also reduce verbal prompt dependency. So they can be very useful in a group setting without interrupting instruction.
I feel like there was a little slight in there towards verbal prompts. I heard it.
There was none intended. You heard what you heard based on the stories you created in your head.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. All right. Well, Daniel, we will give you 30 seconds to rebut or provide your thoughts about some of the potential drawbacks of gestural prompts.
I think it's interesting that my opponent decided to not use her prompt in this format because it's not very universal. So during a busy school day, ambiguity is the enemy of effective behavior management. Verbal cues, verbal prompts provide immediate clarity for what the expectations are. They eliminate guesswork for diverse learners. They know exactly what it is they need to do. And you will see throughout schools all over the world, verbal prompts are the thing to do because
And
they
flag on
teach
the
us so many
play.
skills. I gotta work on my timing.
Offsides.
All right. So now, Daniel, we're going to give you 30 seconds on the clock to talk about the pros of using verbal prompts.
The benefit to verbal prompts is that they already exist around us all the time, right? When we're thinking about teaching, when we're thinking about instructing kids and learning new skills, we talk through it. We give them the instructions. They're quick, they're easy to deliver. They don't rely on ambiguous cues like pictures or body language that some students may not interpret well. And they are very easy to deliver for most things most of the time.
All right. I think he's forfeiting the rest of his time.
My heart rate's up.
Okay. All right. So then, Daria, we're going to put 30 seconds on the clock for you to talk about any potential drawbacks of verbal prompts.
Great. I'd argue that Charlie Brown's teacher engaged in lots of verbal prompting, and yet all that Charlie heard was wah 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 wah. So verbal prompts, we make an assumption that students actually listen to us, which may or may not be true for children of all sorts of age, or gets to the point of diverse learners who may have different skill acquisition around language. I'd argue that gestures are all around us as well. And it's important for students to know the expected behavior clearly for gestural prompts
Time.
as well.
All right. So we've heard what they are, we've heard the pros and potential drawbacks. So now we're going to go into round three, which is application. So we're going to ask each of you to provide an example of how you would do this or use this in your classroom setting. So, Daria, if you could lead us off on this one.
So it is important for teachers to make sure that they very clearly taught the behavior expectations first and have checked for understanding to ensure that students do indeed know and have the skills needed for their behavior. Once those things are true, then you're able to use a gestural prompt as almost like a teacher hack, as almost like a shorthand to help students get back to the expected behavior that they are able to do. So if you know that the students know that when they are working independently, they should not be talking to a peer sitting next to them, you may not need to reteach and give lots of verbal prompts at that time. Just a gestural nod or a teacher look or any sort of other motion is going to be enough. So it is helpful to shorten that time so you can really focus your time on the instruction and on the activity. So you use it when you need to quickly redirect students to re-engage in the behaviors that they know what the expectation is and that they can do.
So can you provide us a brief example of what that looks like?
Yes. So when a student is talking to a partner sitting across from them, when they should be reading silently, walking by that student and giving them a look and then redirecting that look to the book is going to be enough for them to understand that what you're really asking them to do is to get back on quiet reading.
All right. Well, thank you, Daria. Daniel, now it's your turn to give us an example of what this looks like in a classroom.
Sure. So I think verbal prompts can be really beneficial, especially when you're addressing kind of a larger group. So in an example that we're doing, small group work, and the groups are getting a little ramped up, right? And it's getting louder than we expected it to. The teacher can use a verbal prompt to one, either gain everybody's attention because it's something that's going to stand out from the rest of the environment. It'd be hard to stand and kind of point at something or gesture to the whole class. So it's easier to kind of get that attention from a larger group. Provide that clear language. Remember, we're in small groups, and gives the opportunity to provide that reminder of what the expectation is and maybe that you weren't meeting that expectation at the time. Um, so that's one. The other is kind of using direct and indirect, and I think this is one of the SOL kind of prompts is you can provide indirect prompts to students who may need support with task initiation or task completion. You can say keep going. You can say where you're not necessarily, it's not the content necessarily, it's sort of a what's next kind of thing. You can use all kinds of different language to help fade those out. The last one I want to give is sort of this idea of reinforcing students who are meeting the expectations, and that can serve as a verbal prompt to students who are not. If I say, Daria, thanks for sitting so quietly and getting your work done, she's seeing, or the class is seeing that Daria is getting recognized and reinforced for that, which serves then as a prompt for them to do the same thing.
All right. And just in case for our non-Virginia listeners, SOLs are our standards of learning here in Virginia. So Common Core, whatever your state may use. So, all right. So that takes us through all three rounds. That leaves us open to any closing thoughts from our contestants about prompting. Yes, Daniel.
As with any other strategy, I think, and we've said it in the other episodes, and if you've not listened to other episodes, this is all about context, right? And it's all about the students we're supporting and the skills we're teaching. And our handshake here is, I think there should always be a combination of prompts put in place that help students be successful. And so, especially early on, I might use verbal prompts to talk through the morning routine, but I would want to fade those back and use visual supports and use gesture prompts as students start to learn it, so that I'm not then responsible for being there to provide that verbal prompt every time. There's cues in the environment. I'm helping them learn to use cues in the environment to help them complete that routine.
Yeah, and Daniel, to shake the hand across the Zoom here, right? I very much agree. And I think that the decision rule in our heads could be if you are uncertain that the student really truly knows the expectation, a verbal prompt is a more sure way to communicate more clearly, provided that the student has the language ability, right? If, however, you are very confident that the student knows exactly what they should be doing, and for whatever reason they are not, gestural prompt might be a good starting point as kind of that quick redirect. So there's absolutely a place and a time for both. You just, again, have to think about what is the amount of support that the student needs at this point of time, and how clear are you that they are understanding what the expected behavior in this moment in time is, and what are their needs for support.
Well, I think you both make really good points. I would just like to add a couple closing thoughts about prompts. In general, to both of your points, prompting is a really useful strategy. Which kind of prompt you use really does depend on your learner, what your outcome is. There can be a lot of contextual factors. I think about, for example, if you're in a quiet classroom, using a verbal prompt, using something like that might be more distracting. And so a gestural prompt may be really appropriate to just point to the book or point to the door or whatever you need to do so that the learner knows what they're supposed to be doing. But if they're not going to be successful with that level of a prompt, then you need to use other types of prompts so that they can be successful. Because really, the point of using prompting is to help the individual to be successful in engaging in whatever behavior it is that we want them to do, whether that's reading, moving, talking, putting things away, whatever the case may be. So that said, as always, both strategies are really useful in their own way, and I think fit into all classrooms at some point, probably every day. I imagine our listeners are thinking about, well, I use verbal and gestural prompts all the time. You probably do, and you should keep doing that because they tend to be really helpful. I think hopefully what this helps you think about, though, is just being really thoughtful about when we're using what kinds of prompts to help our learners be as independent as they possibly can. So, with that, Daria and Daniel, thank you. I hope that we had a little fun with our strategy showdown today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thanks to our listeners.
Thank you.
And Emily, thank you for keeping time and keeping us on track today.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Education Insights Focus on Behavior. We hope you enjoyed the conversation, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can join the conversation by emailing us at cbis@odu.edu, visiting www.cbisva.org, or following us on Facebook, Instagram, X, or Blue Sky at CBISVA. Special thanks to the Virginia Department of Education for their support of this project.